She found a note on her desk, "You forgot me. But I've returned." The problem was just one thing, the handwriting was her own. I didn't notice it right away. The morning began as usual, coffee, unlocking my computer, checking emails. But when I reached for my notebook, I saw the note. An old yellow sticky note. "You forgot me. But I've returned." My fingers tightened around it. I examined the handwriting. It was mine. A feeling like cold fingers squeezed my throat. I hadn't written this. I definitely hadn't written this. I looked around. The office was empty. No one could have played a prank. I turned the note over. On the back was an address. My old house, where I hadn't been for 10 years. I abandoned my work and drove there. The sun was setting as I pulled up to the weathered Victorian on Oakwood Drive. The fading daylight cast long shadows across the overgrown lawn, transforming the once familiar silhouette into something almost menacing. Fallen leaves crunched beneath my feet as I approached the porch steps. Detective Sarah Mills from the 43rd Precinct had been my neighbor back then. We weren't close, but she'd helped me through a difficult time. Maybe she still lived nearby. Maybe she could help me make sense of this. The house was abandoned, covered in dust and cobwebs. The key was still hidden under the loose brick by the garden. Some habits never change. The door creaked open, revealing the forgotten interior of my past life. "Hello." I called out, my voice sounding small in the empty space. No response, just the settling of the old house around me. My footsteps echoed on the hardwood floors as I moved through the living room. Everything was covered in a thick layer of dust except for one spot on the mantel, a clean rectangle where a frame had once stood. Someone had been here recently. I almost immediately noticed a photograph on the floor. It showed me. Standing next to me was a person. A man, but his face was blurred. "What the hell?" I whispered, my heart racing. I didn't remember this photo being taken. I heard a soft sound behind me. I turned around. Someone had written something on the wall. "Do you remember now?" The paint was fresh. I ran out without looking back. In the car, I breathed heavily, desperately gulping air. Someone was playing with me. But who? My hands trembled on the steering wheel. Think, Amy, think. Who would do this? And why use my handwriting? I'd left that house after my divorce from Michael. It had been a messy split, accusations, fights, restraining orders. But that was a decade ago. Michael had moved to Seattle afterward. I pulled out my phone and called my sister, Jen. "Hey, you okay?" "You sound weird," she answered. "Yeah, I found something strange at work today," I said, deciding not to mention the old house yet. "Has anyone asked about me recently? Or about my old place on Oakwood?" "No, why would they?" Jen asked, concern in her voice. "Amy, what's going on?" "I'm not sure," I replied honestly. "Probably nothing. Look, when was the last time we talked about Michael?" "Michael? God, years ago. Why would you bring him up now?" "Just, wondering if he's tried to contact you." There was a pause. "No. Nothing." "Amy, you're scaring me." "I'm fine. Just following up on something. I'll call you later." I hung up and sat in silence for a moment, watching as the last orange glow of sunset disappeared behind the trees. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "The answers are where you left them." I drove home in a daze, checking my rearview mirror every few seconds, feeling exposed. When I arrived, there was another note on the door. "You looked right at me. Why are you pretending?" I could no longer deny it. Someone was watching me. With shaking hands, I unlocked my door and stepped inside, immediately checking every room, every closet. Empty. I double-checked all the locks and drew the blinds. I opened my laptop and accessed old files I hadn't opened in years. And found a video recording. The file was named "Don't Watch." My hands trembled as I pressed play. The camera was filming me, sleeping in bed. I froze. But the most terrifying part came at the end. In the final frames, I slowly opened my eyes, and looked directly into the camera. If I don't remember anything, then who was filming? I slammed the laptop shut, my breath coming in short gasps. This couldn't be happening. I reached for my phone to call Detective Mills, then hesitated. What would I say? That I found a note in my own handwriting? That there was a video I didn't remember filming? The rational part of my brain insisted there must be a logical explanation. Maybe I was sleepwalking. Maybe I had a dissociative episode. Or maybe someone was deliberately trying to make me question my sanity. I needed professional help. Not just a detective, but someone who could help me understand what was happening to my mind. Dr. Eleanor Wright had been my therapist years ago, during the divorce. I hadn't seen her since I'd moved away from Oakwood Drive. I found her number and called, not expecting her to answer this late. To my surprise, she picked up on the third ring. Dr. Wright speaking. Eleanor, it's Amy Larson. I'm sorry to call so late, but... Amy? Her voice contained a mixture of surprise and something else. Concern. Fear. Are you all right? I don't think so, I admitted. I'm experiencing something strange. Notes in my handwriting that I don't remember writing. A video of myself that I don't remember recording. Silence on the other end. Finally, where are you now? At my apartment. Stay there. I'll come to you. Give me your address. Something about her immediate offer to come over struck me as odd, but I was too rattled to question it. I gave her my address and hung up. While waiting, I decided to watch the video again, forcing myself to look for clues. The timestamp showed it was recorded almost 10 years ago, just before my divorce. The camera angle suggested it had been placed on my dresser. As I watched my sleeping form, I noticed something in the background, a shadow moving across the wall. There was someone else in the room. I rewound and watched again. The shadow was distinct, someone standing just out of frame. When I opened my eyes at the end of the video, I wasn't looking at the camera. I was looking at whoever was behind it. My doorbell rang, making me jump. Through the peephole, I saw Dr. Wright, older than I remembered, her hair now completely silver, but unmistakably her. I opened the door. Amy, she said, studying my face intently. You look exactly the same. Thank you for coming, I said, stepping aside to let her in. I didn't know who else to call. She entered cautiously, glancing around my apartment. Tell me what's happening. I showed her the notes and the video. She watched in silence, her expression unreadable. You don't remember making this recording? She asked when it ended. No. And there's someone else there, in the shadows. She nodded slowly. Amy, do you remember why you stopped seeing me for therapy? The question caught me off guard. I moved away after the divorce. Started fresh. Dr. Wright placed her hands on her knees, leaning forward. That's not what happened, Amy. A chill ran through me. What do you mean? You stopped coming because I suggested a psychiatric evaluation. You were experiencing lost time. Blackouts. You'd find notes you'd written to yourself and couldn't remember writing them. I stared at her. That's not possible. I would remember that. Would you? She asked gently. Amy, you were diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder. You had at least one alter personality that we identified. The room seemed to tilt around me. No. That's not. Michael would have used that against me in the divorce. Michael knew. He was supportive, actually. It was after the incident that everything fell apart. What incident? My voice was barely a whisper. Dr. Wright's eyes filled with compassion. You really don't remember. Your alter, you called him James, became increasingly protective. Paranoid, even. He believed Michael was trying to harm you. My mouth went dry. What happened? There was a confrontation. Michael was injured. Not severely, but enough that he moved away afterward. You were prescribed medication, which seemed to integrate your personalities. The blackout stopped. You appeared to recover. I shook my head vehemently. No. That's not what happened. We divorced because he was cheating. He moved to Seattle for work. Dr. Wright sighed. Amy, Michael never left town. He's still here. He changed his name after what happened, started over. He's been living less than 20 miles from you all this time. My head was spinning. This makes no sense. If what you're saying is true, why would these episodes start again now, after 10 years? Did you stop taking your medication? I blinked. I'm not on any psychiatric medication. Dr. Wright's expression darkened. That would explain it. Your alter may have convinced you to stop. James was always resistant to treatment. A noise from the kitchen made us both turn. A cabinet door slowly swung open. Is someone else here? Dr. Wright whispered. No, I replied, rising from my seat. At least, there shouldn't be. I walked cautiously toward the kitchen, Dr. Wright following close behind. The cabinet stood open, revealing a row of prescription bottles I'd never seen before. With trembling fingers, I picked one up. The label read, Amy Larson, risperidone, take twice daily. The date on the prescription was from last month. I don't understand, I said, turning to Dr. Wright. I don't remember filling these. Her face was grim. James does. So you're saying my alter personality has been secretly taking medication without my knowledge? That doesn't make sense. No, she said carefully. I'm saying James has been the dominant personality for some time now. You, Amy, are the one who's been dormant. The bottle slipped from my fingers, clattering to the floor. That's impossible. Is it? Think about it, Amy. The notes. You forgot me. But I've returned. It's not someone writing to you. It's you, the original Amy, trying to break through. My mind raced, trying to process what she was saying. No. I know who I am. I go to work every day. I have a life. James integrated enough of your personality to function in your world. But something triggered a fracture. The original Amy is trying to surface again. I backed away from her. This is crazy. No, Amy. This is real. And I think I know what triggered it. She pulled out her phone and showed me a news article dated 3 days ago. Local man assaulted in home invasion, Michael Donovan hospitalized. Michael's familiar face stared back at me from the screen. Older, with some gray in his beard, but unmistakably him. James always feared Michael would come back for you, Dr. Wright explained. When he saw this article, it must have triggered a break. Your original personality is fighting to regain control. My back hit the wall. The room was spinning. Are you saying I, or this James, attacked Michael? Dr. Wright shook her head. I don't know. But the timing is suspicious. And your sudden awareness, these notes appearing, it suggests a significant psychological event has occurred. I slid down the wall until I was sitting on the floor, my entire reality crumbling around me. So what do I do now? First, we get you back on your medication. Then we work on integration therapy again. It worked before, it can work again. And Michael? If James really hurt him. One step at a time, she said, kneeling beside me. Right now, we need to stabilize you. As she spoke, I noticed a reflection in the kitchen window, a silhouette standing in the darkened hallway behind us. A man's figure. But when I turned to look, no one was there. Did you see that? I asked. Dr. Wright glanced at the empty hallway. See what? Nothing, I said quickly, a chill running down my spine. Just a shadow. Later that night, after Dr. Wright had left with a promise to return tomorrow, I found myself drawn to my laptop again. Something about the video still bothered me. I watched it once more, frame by frame, focusing on the shadowy figure in the background. As my sleeping self in the video opened her eyes, I paused it. The shadow had moved closer. With the right adjustments to brightness and contrast, I could almost make out a face. My blood ran cold. It was Dr. Wright. She had been there that night, 10 years ago, watching me sleep. Why? I rewound further, to before I'd even appeared in the frame. There was muffled talking. I increased the volume to maximum and listened closely. Stable now, a voice that sounded like Dr. Wright said. The suggestion is holding. And she won't remember any of this? Another voice, a man's. No. As far as Amy is concerned, James never existed. I slammed the laptop shut, my mind racing. If Dr. Wright was there that night, if she was talking about erasing James from my memory, what else was she lying about? I grabbed my phone and searched for news about Michael's assault. The article showed his house, a small ranch-style home on the other side of town. I memorized the address. I had to know the truth. The hospital was quiet at this late hour. I found Michael's room easily. A uniformed police officer dozed in a chair outside, suggesting they were taking the assault seriously. I slipped past while he was nodding off and entered the dimly lit room. Michael lay in the bed, his face bruised, and four in his arm. He appeared to be sleeping. I approached quietly, my heart pounding. Michael? I whispered. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, then widening in recognition and fear. Amy, he croaked, his hand moving toward the call button. Or is it James? It's Amy, I said quickly. I think. I don't know anymore. He studied my face, his finger hovering over the button. Prove it. I don't know how. Tell me something only Amy would know. I thought hard. On our second date, I spilled red wine on your white shirt. You said it was your lucky shirt, but you never got mad. You said meeting me was all the luck you needed. Something in his expression softened. He lowered his hand. What are you doing here? I need to know what happened. To you. To us. Dr. Wright told me things that don't match my memories. Michael sighed. What do you remember? We divorced because you cheated. You moved to Seattle. He shook his head slowly. I never cheated, Amy. And I never left town. After what happened, I changed my name to keep you from finding me. What did happen? I asked, dreading the answer. Your other personality, James, became convinced I was trying to hurt you. One night, he confronted me. Put a knife to my throat. Michael's hand unconsciously moved to a thin scar on his neck. He said if I ever came near you again, he'd kill me. And Dr. Wright? What was her role in all this? Michael's expression darkened. She was supposed to be helping you. But her methods were experimental. She believed she could control when each personality emerged. She called it directed dissociation. My mind flashed to the video, Dr. Wright's voice talking about the suggestion holding. Was she there the night you were attacked? He nodded slowly. She arrived after James left. Said she could make you forget everything, make James dormant. I was scared, Amy. For you, For myself. I agreed to disappear. And now? What happened 3 days ago? Michael looked away. Someone broke in. At first, I thought it was a random burglary. But nothing was taken. The intruder just stood over my bed, watching me. When I woke up and saw him, he attacked. Did you see his face? No. He wore a mask. But. He hesitated. But what? He knew my real name. Called me Michael, not David. No one calls me that anymore. A chill ran through me. Do you think it was James? I don't know. But the police found something at the scene. He pointed to a plastic evidence bag on the nightstand. A yellow sticky note. With your handwriting. I picked up the bag with trembling hands. The note inside read. You forgot me. But I've returned. The same words that had started all of this. Michael, I'm scared, I admitted. I don't know what's real anymore. I don't know who I am. He reached out and took my hand. You're Amy. You always have been. James was created to protect you. From what, I never knew. Dr. Wright is coming to my apartment tomorrow. She wants to put me back on medication. Fear flashed across Michael's face. Don't let her. Whatever she did to you before, it wasn't right, Amy. Normal psychiatrists don't watch their patients sleep. They don't erase memories. I nodded, the pieces slowly coming together. I should go before the officer wakes up. What will you do? Find out the truth. All of it. As I turned to leave, Michael called after me softly. Amy, be careful. If James is back, if he attacked me, he might not recognize the danger from Wright. Or maybe he does, I whispered. Maybe that's why he's trying to wake me up. I left the hospital with more questions than answers, but one thing was becoming clear, Dr. Wright was not the ally she pretended to be. Back at my apartment, I searched for any clues about my past, about James, about what had really happened. In a locked drawer of my desk, I found a journal I didn't recognize. The handwriting was mine, but the voice was different, more assertive, more paranoid. James. The entries detailed Dr. Wright's treatments, hypnosis sessions, experimental drugs, something called directed personality integration. The final entry, dated just 1 week ago, read. Wright is planning something. I've seen her watching the apartment. Amy needs to know the truth. I'm going to wake her up. I sat back, stunned. If these writings were real, if James was real, then he wasn't trying to harm me. He was trying to save me. From Dr. Wright. But why? What did she want from me? The answer came in the form of an email notification that popped up on my laptop. A message from an address I didn't recognize, sent just minutes ago. Look in the attic of the Oakwood house. James was communicating with me directly now. I knew what I had to do. The old house on Oakwood Drive was silent as I approached it for the second time that day. This time, I went straight to the hidden attic access in the master bedroom closet. The ladder creaked as I climbed it, flashlight in hand. The attic was dusty and cluttered, filled with forgotten belongings. In the corner, I found a metal lockbox that looked recently disturbed, the dust around it had been wiped clean. The key was taped to the bottom. Inside was a USB drive and a stack of medical documents. I plugged the drive into my laptop. It contained video files, dozens of them. Each showed Dr. Wright conducting what she called integration sessions with me. In some, I was clearly myself, frightened, confused. In others, my posture and voice changed completely, more confident, protective. James. In the final video, dated 10 years ago, Dr. Wright spoke directly to James. You know too much, she said. You've seen what the others haven't. That makes you dangerous. You're experimenting on us, James replied using my voice. All of us. Amy isn't the only one, is she? She's special, Dr. Wright insisted. The most successful subject in the program. Her dissociation was natural at first, but we've perfected it. Directed it. You created me, James said, realization dawning. You didn't just treat Amy's disorder. You engineered it. Dr. Wright smiled coldly. And now I'm going to engineer your disappearance. No one will believe you anyway. A fabricated personality making accusations against a respected psychiatrist. The video ended with Dr. Wright injecting something into my arm. The medical documents filled in the rest. They detailed a classified research program studying artificially induced dissociative states. The goal, to create separate, controllable personalities within a single subject. The perfect espionage tool, multiple agents in one body, each unaware of the others. I was subject 7. There were at least 12 others. I sat amid the dust of my old attic, pieces of my fractured memory finally coming together. I hadn't developed dissociative identity disorder naturally. Dr. Wright and whoever she worked for had created it in me. Created James as a compartmentalized personality. But they hadn't counted on him becoming self-aware. Becoming protective of me. Remembering what they made the others forget. My phone buzzed, a text from Dr. Wright. I'm outside your apartment. Where are you, Amy? It's time for your medication. I didn't respond. Instead, I gathered all the evidence and drove straight to Detective Sarah Mills' precinct. As I pulled into the parking lot, I glanced at my rearview mirror. For a brief moment, I thought I saw someone else's eyes looking back at me, harder, more determined than my own. We'll make them remember, I whispered, not sure if I was talking to James or to myself. All of us. The truth was out there, hidden in fractured memories and secret files. And somewhere between Amy and James, I would find it. Because whoever I truly was, whatever they had made me, I was done forgetting.